Why should a voter whose number one issue is climate change vote for you instead of your opponent?
First of all, thank you. I want to thank QCAN for having us here tonight.
Microphone.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. I want to thank QCAN for having it again this night, again this year. I know the organization is getting stronger, and I know that over the last 2 years, I had more of a baptism in getting involved in climate issues in Ward 1. One of the points that I want to bring up to this question about why folks should vote for me is results. We talked a little bit, I know that David mentioned the seawall program. We jumped into the seawall program with the administration full force, made sure we made the right moves, had the right meetings, and also brought in not only the seawall to protection of the houses and the folks in Ward 1, but also the wetlands. I've been an avid opponent against the compressor station down in Weymouth. I lived in Braintree for a little bit, and with Ward 1, with Germantown and House Neck on the border of it, I think it's a big problem. So I want to stay on those two issues and finish them off.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, QCAN, for hosting this. I think the reason you should vote for me, as opposed to Dave, is just a sense of urgency. After I got involved in 2017 running for office, I joined QCAN, and I became an active member because I care about the environment and I want to help. Now, there's people who are experts on environments, and there's people who can help get things done. I'm one of the latter. I don't understand the science, but you tell me something we need to get done, I'm going to help find a way to activate the people to get it done. Unfortunately, I was disappointed after I joined QCAN that we extended an invitation to Dave to come to one of our meetings and meet with us either at a meeting or we would have come to him. To my knowledge, he still has not accepted that invitation. I take the climate change issue very seriously, and as your Ward 1 counselor, I will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question. For this one, we'll start with Joe. What do you see as the biggest environmental problems affecting Ward 1 and its residents, and which is of greatest concern to you? How do you propose to address it?
Okay, well, the greatest, I would say there's two levels. Ward 1 is part of Quincy, and Quincy needs to be more of a leader as far as local environmental policy. Obviously, seawalls, tide gates, and storm drainage are things that we need to prioritize in a much more urgent fashion. We've seen what the administration can do when it cares about something. If it doesn't want a bridge to get built, guess what? It's on it like lightning. Okay? If it decides seemingly out of nowhere that it wants to put up a special education center, a press conference is called before half the government even knows it's happening. But seawalls, we're out 2 years later, and we're still hearing, we gotta wait for money, we're doing it, we're getting closer, and I'm glad we're getting closer, but there's no urgency. So I think the most pressing environmental concern we have in Ward 1 is a lack of urgency by the government and the leaders that we have right now, and we need to get new ones. Thank you.
Thank you. In regards to urgency, I totally disagree with my opponent's comments. That seawall issue that we had here now, we've gone through multiple community meetings with all the neighborhoods. There are folks in here that have been at multiple meetings, so we got the design right, the drainage right, and community input. It wasn't going to happen overnight. On October 30th, coming up in a week or so, we have a large community meeting that's been mailed out to everyone up at City Hall to discuss now the company that's going to put it in, how it's going to be executed, how we're going to go about treating your property with respect, and what we need to do in regards to access to the beach. So the seawall issue is far from being neglected. I'm surprised he said that. I'm surprised people say that. That was the first thing that the administration and myself tackled right off the bat, and we kept our head down the whole way. That is a big issue. And by helping the seawalls and helping the marshlands, the wetlands, the tide gates, it's going to help the entire area. And to say it hasn't been expedited is far from the truth.
Okay, next question. Again, we're alternating, so we'll just start with you. Okay. Apartment buildings in Quincy with more than 8 units must use private contractors to remove their solid waste, meaning that many don't recycle or have limited recycling. How can the city help apartment dwellers recycle more?
Thank you. I think this was one of our advanced questions, and I took a look at it, and it falls into question 10 and 11 here on the questions that were given to us. You really got to look at an ordinance change that would work. More education aimed at the multi-units with an easy solution for them to execute. And again, it'd be something that could be built into an apartment scenario with the city oversight. To get people overall, I think the residential that I see does a good job on getting their recycling out. But to get the apartments to do it, I think we'd probably have to look at other locations, larger locations for apartments to bring their recycling so that they're not just leaving it and mixing it in with the trash. Try to make it as easy as possible to get these folks that are in apartments and in condos into central areas possibly around the city, besides just directing them down to the DPW on a day to drop off their recyclables if they had to. So multiple locations and something that really needs to be talked about.
Yeah, I actually agree with a lot of that. If you look at the line going down C Street on hazardous waste drop-off day, it goes all the way around, I think, past Wendy's sometimes. People want to do the right thing. They want to recycle. They don't want to throw stuff in our garbage and send it to landfills that doesn't belong there. What we need to do is make it easier, as Dave said. At Atherton Howe, where my children go to school, we have a textile bin. It is completely full all the time. People want to do the right thing. So what we need to do is provide plenty of depots where they can take their stuff on their way to work, on their way to dinner, on their way home, and make it as simple as possible. And we need to do outreach. As I've said before, if we candidates and elected officials are willing to knock on your door to ask for your vote, we can knock on your door and ask how your recycling is going, asking what you need, let you know what's coming out. Instead of sending a mailer or putting it in the Quincy Sun, we can do more outreach to make it very simple and very clear what can be recycled, what can't be. Because right now, the mystification of recycling since China stopped allowing us to send just about everything has turned a lot of people off, and they're just shrugging. So we can do it, but thank you.
Okay, continuing with the recycling issue, you've both touched on residential recycling. So follow-up question. Many of us do have access to curbside recycling, yet the city's recycling rate has been stuck at a very low rate for years. It's only 15% of total waste by weight. So any additional specifics that you'd like to add for how we could increase the city's recycling rate for curbside recycling? Joe?
It's a lot of the same things. We need to make drop-off locations ubiquitous. We need to add education and outreach. I think there should be new homeowner packets that are sent out by the city that demystify the process. I believe we can use the schools as well. School kids care about the environment so much. As a matter of fact, I think the plastic bag ban, Mayor Koch is quoted as saying that he changed his mind on it because middle school students wrote him a letter. So we can use our schools. We can set recycling goals. And if the kids are home saying, Mom, you can't put that in the trash, guess what? They're going to listen. So we can start in the schools. QCAN does a good job. They go to the schools now and talk to people. But if we hit it from a couple fronts, send mailers out to new homeowners, use our public officials to do outreach, and use the schools to set recycling goals for each family, we can definitely get that abysmal rate much higher.
Pretty much the same answer. The education end of things, especially to our younger kids at the elementary and middle school level, and even the high school level, has to be stronger. and a better message has got to be put out. Again, when you're riding around the city, you do see a lot of the blue bins out. You see a lot of the people trying to do the right thing. The rate, though, and the percentage tells the story. We can do better, but I think it is outreach by the city and by the elected officials and by the groups that are here, not just QCAN, other groups that can get involved, and the education aspect of things at all levels to be strengthened. And maybe even, and I'm not clear on the message, I know that they'll have their recycling conversations in school at the different levels, but maybe we can take a look at that message and beef it up so that it's a little more clearer and a little more appeasable to people to be able to do it. Because you got to make it easier. It's pretty easy to put the trash out, but if there was other locations, or the recycling out, if there's other locations and other options, it would just make it easier, because it's hard to teach some old dogs new tricks. Thank you.
Okay, so roughly 3 years ago, the City Council passed a resolution calling for the city to consider adding electric vehicles to its fleet. Yet the city fleet still has no EVs or even a hybrid vehicle. Why do you think that is?
Thank you. Yeah, I looked at that immediately when I couldn't put my finger on it. And I know that the city has, I think, a vehicle or two that is a hybrid gas mix. But electric vehicles are way overdue for us to start to look at. I don't know why it hasn't been pushed forward. It might be a budget issue, but I think it's got to be looked at. I know there's a new garage that's going up in the Hancock lot is going to have the stations to hook up electric cars. So I think that option will be something that you'll see in a lot of the new development. But I also know that, and it's probably a question that might be asked, some of the cars that could do it now are inspectional services, maybe the health department, some of the management cars right off the bat to make sure they respond well in New England weather and make sure we don't run into anything that would bother us out there in our city services role.
This question came up in 2017 when I ran, and I pushed that night too. Nothing's happened. We don't have any electric vehicles. Now, maybe we have a hybrid or two, but not to my knowledge. There's no urgency. I keep coming back to it. I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of people in the administration that don't really acknowledge a problem. We have pictures of our police officers wading through 6 feet of water on C Street during the flood, but we still don't take this problem urgently. I tell you right now, you need to elect city councilors that care about this. It's not going to happen from the top. It's going to happen from the legislative. Braintree went to an electric fleet or partially electric fleet, and they're saving money. If no other reason, we should be doing this to save money. It's a no-brainer, but there's no urgency because it's not something that they're that interested in. I'm telling you, folks, the change has got to come from the legislative side of things. It's not going to come top-down.
Okay. Thank you to both of you. And that's our Ward 1 candidate.